Okay. Until the end of time, be there for you. You are my heart and mind. Truly adore you. One day struck me blind. Your beauty I'd still see. To divine just what you mean to me. From the first moment I saw you, ooh, and you were the one. The night I had to call you, I was rocking till the sun came up. Tell me just how fine you look. In a word, you were sex. All of my cool attitude you took. Body was next. You made love to me like you were afraid. Was you afraid of me? Was I your first? Everything just that's why. Yes, folks. Yes, folks. We lost a legend. We lost a legend this weekend. That legend was none other than Prince. That was Mr. Prince doing his thing. He was rather phenomenal in so many ways. He was the kind of cat who he just made beautiful music, touched so many people in so many ways. And I just want to share, Nick, if you bring it down a little bit more, I'm just going to share a couple of quick Prince stories. We can just kind of leave a door underneath. But obviously we lost a great this weekend. Welcome to C-Suite Sports and csuitesports.net. But we lost a legend in music, and he touched so many people. I think it's social media and across sports and so many parts of people's lives through music. I think was truly one of the greats. I saw incredible tributes this weekend, as I'm sure we all did. One of the ones I saw last night was even, as they say on ESPN all the time, I saw the great Bruce Springsteen, who is great in his own right and legendary in his own right. And to see Bruce Springsteen, I think he was even doing, I caught it like in the middle of the night, but looked like he was doing it in the rain somewhere. But he was doing a concert and did a tribute. And Bruce Springsteen was actually doing Purple Rain, which was really cool. But I wanted to share a couple of funny stories that I had about Prince, and as we can, Nick, you could probably bring it down even a little bit more, and just leave it real light underneath. But a couple of quick Prince stories, just in terms of how he touched my life personally. First of all, I used to enjoy his music, as a lot of people did. I was not the biggest Prince fan, but I was, in the Purple Rain era, I was right there. I was right there. In fact, I had as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I actually had a sport jacket at one point that it was like this muted, almost like a muted plaid, some sort of like almost plaid herringbone, but had a muted purple pinstripe. I used to actually call it Purple Rain. That was my jacket's name. Purple Rain. That was back in high school. Now that I think about it, it literally just popped in my head. But at any rate, when I first, a couple of quick stories about Prince. Number one story, when I first went to see Purple Rain, the movie, went and connected with a friend of mine, this chick Tracy Brown, who, in fact, the guy who I referenced last week, whose mom passed away. She lived down in D.C. I was going to hang out with her and her brother for the weekend. And this had to be back in I want to say 84, 85, somewhere right in there. and got to their crib. And I was like, hey, Shopper, what are we gonna do tonight? And she was just electric. She was like, we're going to Prince. We're going to see Purple Rain. And I was like, I thought you went to see Purple Rain last night or the night before or whatever. She's like, I've already been to see it 3 times. We're going again. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's absolutely intoxicating. You have to go. You have got to go. We are going. And like just her energy and effervescence behind going to see this, this Purple Rain thing that was somehow was going to be a movie that was just going to change my life was a fantastic movie. Of course, thoroughly enjoyed it. But that was her energy at the time. My second story about Prince was actually pretty funny. I was at it was either the 50th or the 75th anniversary of the Apollo, and I should probably know, but off the top of my head, I don't know. But it was several years ago. It was probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and it was either the 50th or the 75th. And Steve Harvey was hosting this anniversary at the Apollo Theater. And everybody who was anybody, big wigs from corporate America, black, white, pink, green. It was a black tie event, and it was on, I think, BET or some other station, but was certainly being recorded and all the above. So everybody from Dick Parsons is there to Quincy Jones is there, Bill Cosby's there, and most of these folks are on stage. And Steve Harvey is just he's hosting the thing, and he's, of course, Steve is doing Steve, so he's cracking on everybody. And in fact, that week he was cracking on Dick Parsons. This was before Steve was quite as big as he is now, so he was bigger in radio, but Steve wasn't really playing all the political games. He was really more so comedian than this guy who now is on all these TV shows. So he had no idea who Dick Parsons was, and Dick Parsons had really had a rough, week. The previous week was a really, really rough week for Mr. Dick. And, but Steve was going ahead and messing with him because Dick came out and was really, really super dry and was, and Steve was just, cracking jokes and having his way with him. So I'm feverishly sending text messages to Steve's manager in the back. I'm like, yo, you're going to want to lay off, dude, because that's Dick Parsons. And he's like Time Warner, AOL. He's the chairman, and he's he's like the chairman of the Apollo Theater. He's like, Dick Parsons is like on every board in the world. I'm like, oh, you're going to want to leave that dude alone. Steve doesn't know who he is, but trust, you do not want to mess with Dick Parsons. Just leave dude alone. He had a bad week last week, really, really bad. He's all across the tabloids. I'm sure he's not in the mood, so just leave him alone. And so I'm trying to send these messages. Steve is disregarding all of it. Steve is running through every stoplight. he's just lighting Dick up, saying that Dick is the corniest black man he's ever seen in his life. And, Steve was hilarious doing his thing. Well, as he's having all these jokes and all this humor and stuff, I would say we're probably about an hour into the show, and they kind of, changed the set a little bit, and Steve was off to the right, and then he kind of came back on stage. And then I think a puff of smoke happened, and maybe a cloud erupted or something. And next thing you know, you could see a figure in the corner of the stage, but you couldn't make out who or what it was. And this figure was none other than my man Prince. So they turn up the lights, and it's Prince. Now, the fact that it was Prince, that didn't make it incredible. That didn't make it funny, just the fact it was Prince, and of course everybody started screaming and, carrying on. What made it funny was that, and I know Steve Harvey personally. I don't know him, that well, but I've been to his crib a couple of times. So I know him a little bit. I've hung out with him and his wife, a couple of his boys, played, golf with him and Cedric and some cats. So I know him a little bit. And, and Steve is a pretty hard cat. Steve fashions himself a rough cat. He's old school. He's I believe from Cleveland, and so he believes he's he'd been through it. Well, next thing I know, is Steve turns around and sees Prince on stage, and Steve Harvey, grown ass man as he would say about himself, he turns around and my man is boo-hooing in tears I'm telling you, Steve Harvey is in tears, crying and slobbering over the fact that Prince is on stage. And he's like, man, y'all don't know, man. This is the baddest cat out. He's the baddest cat alive. I love this music, and y'all don't even understand what's going on. And he's just crying and slobbering and just carrying on in front of everybody. As he literally is the MC of the evening, and he is in a boo-hoo fest, torn down, cannot compose himself. And I'm looking at this, and and I'm a Prince fan, but I'm like, damn, dog, is it really like this? Is it really like this? So I'm in total disbelief as I'm sitting here watching this. And then finally, I turned to my date. Because, we're going to an event and there was supposed to be some chicks, and I think at the time I was newly divorced or something. So I got a man date. So I got one of my boys with me. So I turned to my boy, who was my date for the night, because we were supposed to be there, checking out chicks, and everybody was going to be right. I start talking out loud as I'm facing the stage, and I'm like, man, can you believe this? Respecting the fact I'm on the air, but I'm starting to cuss and leave some expletives because I cannot believe that Steve Harvey is crying and boo-hooing like this. And as I say, like in an incredulous fashion, as I turn to my left to look at my date, I'm like, can you believe this? And I turn and look at my date, and my boy, Ivan, is crying and boo-hooing and slobbering all over himself, just like Steve Harvey. And I'm like, oh my God, am I surrounded by absolute madness? I'm like, Prince is a bad boy. I understand his music is good. But when grown-ass men start breaking down and crying just about seeing the dude, just seeing and being in his presence, in his aura, and that he was on the stage, I couldn't believe it. Just absolutely couldn't believe it. So anyway, so that's my Steve Harvey Apollo story. One other quickie I would want to share is that another time I actually met Prince up close and personal. I was in a DC after hours spot, which doesn't even really exist, but I guess it kind of exists because I had lived in DC for over a decade, and all of a sudden somebody told me there was an after hours spot that Prince was going to be appearing at, and I said to this chick, I was like, what do you mean a DC after hours spot? Because I thought I knew DC frontwards and backwards. It's not a big city, and I felt like I knew every kind of street, nook and cranny, and I was like, what do you mean an after hours spot? Like, I hang out late. I got a strong late night game. Where is this after hours spot that I don't know about? And you're telling me not only do I not know about it, but Prince is going to come to town and he's going to be at this spot? Well, needless to say, the chick is like, look, just come scoop me about 2 a.m, and we're going to roll through. Because DC closes at 2. DC shuts down. They roll up the sidewalks, the whole deal. So we roll to this little neighborhood up in the cut, and we're in the hood. And as we pull up to like this big, look like almost a haunted house type mansion, there is a tour bus in the middle of a neighborhood block. And so we go in. We got to do a little knock and stand on one leg, and then do a password and wiggle your ear and some other stuff. But then they eventually go ahead and let us in the spot. And a few minutes later, I look up, and standing next to me at the bar is none other than Prince himself. Dude is like literally standing there. It's just him and the big old bodyguard, big white dude who used to look like ZZ Top back in the day with the blonde hair and the beard that used to hang down back in the mid 80s around Purple Rain. I don't remember what dude's name was, but he was just like a big sleeveless shirt. It was like Hulk Hogan with a beard. And a little bit heavier, but really, really large man. And Prince is a really, really small man. And that's how they were rolling. And this was clearly a spot that was, this was like an after hours kind of this was like a creep spot, Plato's Retreat.